All right,
Okay. Just press on. That is it, Paul and,
Liam.
I got-
And
Good
Beth.
evening.
Yeah, Liam and Paul and Betsy are on here.
Okay,
Okay, we're about to start.
We're about to start. Good evening. The Red Bank Historic Preservation Commission will hold a regular meeting on Wednesday, August 20th, 2025 at 7 p.m. at 90 Monmouth Street, Red Bank. Adequate notice of this meeting has been posted at Borough Hall, filed with the Borough Clerk, and provided to the Asbury Park Press and the Two River Times. The commission has maintained a policy cutoff hour of 8:30 p.m. for these meetings. I'd ask you now to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
allegiance
to the
to
flag
the
of the United States of America.
America,
Oh,
to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
And now, roll call, please.
Lou Almarini,
Present.
Marjorie Cavalier,
Present.
Liam Collins,
Present.
Paul Cagno,
Present.
Karen Schnellscoff. Present. Anthony Sotero, absent, and Betsy Valera.
Present.
I'm going to move straight into administrative matters. We'll save all public comments at the end. First would be approval of.
Can you move that a little closer to you?
Sure. First matter is approving the minutes of the last regular meeting, which was June 18th. You may recall that we did not hold a meeting in July. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
A second?
I was absent.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I
I was
abstained.
absent also.
And,
I was absent and, I
okay.
was absent, I think.
No.
Yeah.
I was
Oh, absent.
I was not absent in.
No, oh, Liam, somebody said that they were absent on the Zoom, sorry.
no,
Yeah.
I was not.
Is, Anthony?
I don't know. I can't hear from here.
Right, are we all set with that? Now we'll move to the reports, starting with the Minor Works Committee.
Yes, the Minor Works Committee met, well, we did not meet, but these were minor signage applications that we decided that they were appropriate for the locations. And so they were approved via email. And those were 3-5 Broad Street and 34 Broad Street. Okay.
Thank you. I'm moving to the River Center report.
The River Center report was, the River Center report was going to be that we approved the sign and that it was coming here. So we already covered the sign under minor business. Thank you.
Thank you. Historic Sites Design Guideline Committee.
So I'd ask the chair to move that lower on the agenda so that we can hear an application from a business owner in town. So I would call for a motion to amend the agenda to move up new business.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of deferring the discussion of that to later in the meeting?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Thank you. To be clear, we will discuss new business first and then we'll turn back to that. So the first matter of new business is 4850 Monmouth Street, facade improvement. Thank you, Mr. You have the floor.
There's a microphone on that table there that you could either hold or, yeah.
I don't think so. We are going to get it.
How about that one over there in the well? Does that work?
That's what you would say.
John? They said they've been using that at council.
I'd like to speak up if you would.
This is all. As long as it picks up on this, just project your voice.
I'll try. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is John Bleeker from Bleeker Architectural Group. I'm a founding member of that firm approximately 40-some years ago. I graduated from NJIT in 1983. I have over 40 years experience doing architectural plans, site plans, and projects, presenting in front of planning boards, zoning boards, as co-host courts of law. I've testified and served as an expert in front of boards of this type over 3,500 times. But at this point, I would like to present the case, and I want to thank the board for having us here tonight, and giving us the consideration of being able to present this. But I will adhere to your format, whatever format you want me to do. You tell me. Would you like me to just continue as this way? And
Yes, I mean, what we would be after is a high-level discussion summary of what you're aiming to accomplish with the building.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Basically, what we have is, this is an existing building, it's mixed use. Right now, there's residential apartments, and it was an old dental office. The dental office and one apartment were on the first floor, and then there was 2 apartments on the second level. What we propose to do is basically the dental office, he was actually the owner of the property. He has sold the building to my client, and my client has her business in town in Red Bank. She has a tailor shop there. She's been there quite some time. She also has another location in Manhattan, but they're in a rental situation, and they literally are right now across the street. And they want to actually, they bought this building with the hopes of moving in and utilizing one half of the first floor, a little bit more than half, maybe 60% of the first floor for the tailor shop, and then the other portion would remain as an apartment. But the whole first floor is basically looking to get renovated and come up to all modern standards. And this is the existing building that is there now. And this colored rendition is the elevation of what we're proposing. And I'll go through each element as you see. I know that we had emailed drawings, I'm sorry, photographs to the board. I don't know if you had a chance to see.
Could you just pass them up?
But I mean, I can show you these, which are, this one actually is a very nice picture of the front elevation, which is really the area that we're going to work on.
I know.
Okay. So this is the 2-dimensional drawing of the picture that's right now. And it shows the building as it sits. It has a clapboard siding, which is really just it's a vinyl siding, which is on the existing building. It has nice white trim boards throughout, around the windows,
Right.
aluminum.
Yeah, can I see it after
And
back?
what we propose to do is actually upgrade that to new AZAC boards, especially around the front porch. And then we would like to bring back this old eyebrow kind of vernacular for the entrance. The problem personally I had with the building itself is the building kind of looked like it was split in 2 pieces. That's the way it was, and figuratively it actually was, because there was actually an entrance for the dental office on the left side, and there was another entrance for the apartment on the right side. So hence you had 2 staircases, basically making this building look like it was 2 elements. When we looked at the application and we wanted to redesign it, we thought that the building deserved a little bit more character than that. So we would like in this presentation to take those 2 staircases out, construct one central staircase, and basically serve more as like a primary entrance for the building itself. So the building will now read as one building, and it'll read as, you know, very balanced and very structured. We want to create a central entrance in the first floor, which will really be the storefront for the tailor shop itself. To enhance the entrance, you know, we want to put the eyebrow over the top, you know, so to really give a really significance to, you know, the location where people would be gravitated to, both visually, architecturally, and functionally. Now, when it comes to the elements, there's an existing railing there now. And since we are going to take the railing out in the middle and construct the staircase to look exactly like the old staircase, but only in the central location, we're going to take those railings and put them on the sides where we take the stairs away. And so we're not going to change the character of the materials at all. We are going to take the center column out in the middle here. And we're going to do a dual column on either side, which, but that detailing of the columns itself will stay the same as well. So the only other thing that, you know, architecturally we have to do on the upper level, once we do this eyebrow, is it affected the clearance for the two center windows. So we are proposing to take the two windows out, but to keep the same amount of light and air going into the bedroom areas, which are upstairs, we're actually going to combine the windows on the sides with a dual window. And then we will put this circular architectural vent detail in the center to give it some character. The rest of the elevation will be exactly the same. So that's basically, you know, what we're proposing with this application. The shingles themselves are three-dimensional architectural shingles. We are planning for them to stay where they are. They're actually in pretty good shape. When we do the eyebrow, we'll just do the eyebrow with the same type of shingle as the existing building. So obviously here for any other questions, any other things you
Looks
want.
like you added a dormer.
No, the dormer is existing. There.
Like, could you show me where that is on the picture? Like, it looks like you have something coming out on either side of this.
This is really, if you look at the building itself, this is, you know, two-dimensional drawing, but you don't see the rest of the structure in that picture.
So that is
Way
these
back.
little things peeking out of the back?
It's because of the,
Oh, okay.
that must have
Yeah,
been
because
close, so it's a
as a
71.
person, you're only 5 feet.
Right,
there.
right.
Fortunately, from that angle, you don't see this, but when you look at it as a two-dimensional drawing, this is actually the roof that goes to the back of the building.
Okay. And is there any way that vent could be, yeah, more in line with the time period that the building was made?
We have no problem. You know, I mean, detail it. I mean, honestly.
That's very
it's not
prominent.
Historical reference, the way it was detailed,
Right.
but when we actually specify and pick out, I mean, we can definitely do.
Yeah, it's just that when you look at the building, that and the arch are gonna be the things that draw your eye. And, you know, maybe you could do something to really make it pop with a historical detail other than like a plastic vent or something. I don't know. I mean, I'm open for that. And then the last question I have is about the railings. If you could pay particular attention, since you're replacing these railings anyway, consider kind of a nod to the historical period in some way. And then where would the sign appear for the alterations business?
I'm sorry.
Where would you be able to see that this is what the business is? Where would the signage appear on that?
We really, I mean, the signage would be, we would have something underneath, like over the front door. Back there.
Okay,
That's what we're proposing, but we know
But
that.
the application for the signage isn't made at this time?
That's correct.
Okay.
okay,
And, you know, our commitment is to do whatever your board would recommend,
mhm.
whatever the town ordinance is, you know, actually stipulate, we would follow that to the T. We're not looking to reinvent that or do anything.
Did you wanna say?
Require variance.
Mhm.
Do you have any information about the way the building looked when it was built 100 years ago. Any old pictures or anything like that, or evidence perhaps that the duplex-ish design was original, as opposed to it could have started out the way you want to bring it back, and it could have been made a duplex 50 years ago.
That's a really good question. We didn't have any historic, photographs or anything, any additional information. There has been renovations done on the building when the dental office took over. And like like we were talking about, I mean, this siding is not.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? This obviously has been added a long time ago, but it's not. It's probably only 1/3 of added, to the age of the real structure.
Right.
So.
Can I interject here? So the library has records, I think that go back to 1919, and they detail all the architectural structures of all the buildings that existed then. So they could maybe be consulted.
We can look at that, but. I mean, from what I've seen, the windows themselves on the upper level look like their original locations. Downstairs, I can honestly tell you, I think they were old. You know what I mean? I think that was modified from the original, probably the original design. But the whole top level and everything on the top structure itself does look like it was period done. It didn't look like that was changed, at least from my observation. But I can't say the same thing for them. And as far as, was it a duplex or not, that I can't answer.
Can I just add as well that from a historical point of view, Monmouth Street used to be full of houses that looked exactly like this. And if you look up and down Monmouth Street, you can see actually where storefronts have been built onto the fronts of houses like this in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s. And so I think it's really important that this building maintain its architectural significance on the street to show that, what the buildings looked like originally.
So Liam, you're saying that it maintains that it looks like a residence versus a business?
Well, maintains that it has that kind of, Rivertown Victorian charm, basically.
Well, our design, did you see the photograph or the rendering? Can I?
Yeah, maybe you could turn it to them, so.
Yeah, sorry, I cannot see it, no.
Oh, that's okay, because actually, that's exactly what we had in mind when we did this design.
Mm-hmm.
So we really wanted to keep the vernacular, the residential vernacular together. And we wanted to keep that design intent absolutely the same. We didn't want to do a stark commercial kind of storefront, which as you're indicating, there was a lot of residential looking structures. Fortunately, where we are right now, we're the only residential looking structure.
Yeah, right.
On that strip.
That's right.
But we absolutely, are sensitive to the fact that this was residential and we want to keep that vernacular intact. And if you can tell from our rendering, that's exactly what we achieved. So that's really what we're looking for. And we do want to enhance it a little bit.
Karen, did you want to?
Get away from this two entrances, like we did, a single entrance. Residential, if you will, instead of, two outside entrances. And we did want to put a nice divider.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand the front door. Is it two double doors and then there's windows on either side of that?
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It's two doors in the front, and it will have side lights on either side. That's exactly.
Yeah, it looks really nice. And I do think it does keep the character and the charm of the, original style that was on Monmouth Street, which was that kind of Victorian Rivertown look with the front porch, and it looks really nice.
Appreciate it.
So I have just a comment. I'm not familiar with that style of porch roof. I think you called it did you call it a brow? Was that the term?
I called it an eyebrow because that's kind of what it is. It's a gentle arch. But you'll see that a lot in shingle style homes.
I mean,
homes. So.
do we see that anywhere else in the historic homes or historic businesses in Red Bank? I mean, is there anything that in town that has that style of roofs? I mean, I'm just not familiar with a historic home where the top roof has got this, more of a historic where you would typically see in residential, let's say a cornice of some type or decorative moldings along, let's say, the porch. But here we've got this almost looks like not char, but it's like a wavy porch roof. And I'm not familiar with that in any of the structures in town.
Commissioner, I mean, really the reason why we put that in is really to give it a little bit more historic reference, because I'm gonna be frank with you, the craftsmanship that's required to do a roof like that, you wouldn't see on older homes, you would see on more period homes.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. What period home is that? Like, where would I find a roof that looks like that?
They're all, I can give you other examples. I can't say I can give you an example in Red Bank that, I definitely, if you look at older homes, 100 years old, you'll see a lot of details, especially over the front entrances and especially over certain elements that'll be highly detailed and quite frankly, a lot of craftsmanship goes into framing the roofs. Like you'll have bell towers.
Yeah.
You'll have different elements that, quite honestly, the craftsman that we have today cannot always achieve. It's something that, was done many, many years ago by people that were real carpenters and really knew how to do it.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it's not very difficult or you don't require a lot of skill set to build that. But, it's interesting because we're in the midst of adopting official guidelines from our historic architect. And the draft that was sent around, as the members may know, discusses roofs, but I don't see any pictures that would indicate that we have anything like this in town. So that's my only comment to it. I don't recognize the style. I certainly would love to be corrected on it, but I just don't recognize it. Basically we have a different porch roof from the top roof. I don't see any historical moldings, not that it's required, but I don't see this. I wouldn't look at this and say, look at this historic home. That's just my feeling. And within the guidelines, I don't recognize that our architect had identified anything like this within our town.
Yeah, but what I will tell you is this detail is something that we see in more historic homes. We'll see this in modern. All right, but you do see it in more historic homes. It's a detail that has a lot of historical reference to it. And I think that from what I saw of the paper that was put out about the architecture guidelines, seems like that's what, your architect is proposing is have, bring more detailing of areas. Because quite honestly, we can just frame it straight the way it is or leave it the way it is. It'd be a lot less, difficult to do and a lot more economical to do. But we want to do this because we want to bring back that historic character as much as possible with the little amount of work that we're actually touching on stuff. So that's what our intent is, and I respect everything that you've indicated. But from our standpoint, this is definitely bringing back more historical reference than what we clear. That's okay.
Press the button, Karen. Press the button.
I'm pressing. I'm looking at online and I found eyebrow roofs. And it says it's late 19th, early 20th century, shingle, Queen Anne, Tudor revival. Oftentimes they're dormers. And I can say if you drive down 520, I believe it is, on the right-hand side, just as you get out of town, there is barely. There is a building that had that shape of the dormer, and there are several in Manasquan as well, which from the same time period. So roof versus dormer is the only consideration, but I think you can find some historic better for this.
Um. I guess since we're talking about that entrance again, the recommendation that I would also make is if you look at the doors around town, a lot of them do have an arch over the door. So something to consider would be to have an arch over the door, maybe with a transom that mirrors the arch above it to kind of make it more cohesive. Just a suggestion.
Commissioner, that's a great suggestion, but unfortunately, we don't have the ceiling height.
Oh,
So have a 7 foot high door and then have an arch above it. So what we try to do is do exactly that same idea, but do it in the front porch, but I can do it. I can't do it behind here, even though we detailed, if you look at it, closely, we detailed the trim to look like an arch above the door, just like you're indicating.
mhm.
But I follow through with the roof line, so we kind of have that reference. But unfortunately, the structure is so close, and
Mhm.
I can't go above that. I don't have the headline for it.
Okay. Okay. I understand. Yeah.
Any other questions, comments?
So the recommendation will be,
Do we have to approve?
and Shauna, so when are we going to, is the signage gonna come back to us?
They have to submit the signage to us. The signage will most likely go to the minor works committee because they review signages.
Mhm.
So they haven't submitted a signage application.
Okay,
All right, so do I have a motion to approve?
Are there any recommendations?
well,
Oh, yeah.
again, I just like to see something, we don't have to see it, but if they would consider the type of railings as another architectural feature to bring in, that shouldn't add to the cost too much.
I that's a related question. What is the material of the railings that are there now?
If you look closely at that photograph, you'll see it's an aluminum railing. That's what it is.
So it's not original wood.
No,
It's not original wood. It's aluminum.
All right,
but they're taking the railings down, so what I'm suggesting, yes, right,
I'd be glad to put something more.
a little bit more, yeah, more period, yeah,
Make that commitment to you if you.
yeah. So that would be mine, and then the feature,
Recommendation?
the recommendation is consideration of using the railings to highlight the architectural features of the time period. They could do something, with the railings as opposed to just straight aluminum spokes. And then the other thing would be, and somehow consider that feature above the arch as an opportunity to also highlight something about the period, the late 19th century, early 20th century.
So back to the railings. So you do not want aluminum railings?
I don't know how the other people feel, but I mean, we definitely, I think, want something with a little bit more detail than just
So
aluminum railings.
Detailed.
I mean, you could see the picture is just,
well, what your
I just
plan
write it down.
is, what is your plan to do? You said earlier, you're gonna remove the railings.
I mean, some of the railings obviously remaining, but where we have the front, where we had the side, I'm sorry, where we had the side
Mhm.
stairways, there's no railing.
Right.
We're just gonna take the railing in the middle, where we put the new steps,
Mhm.
and just put them on the sides. That was the initial,
Oh.
that's what this design showed.
And you were gonna reuse the railings or use,
That's correct.
okay,
Existing railing.
so I guess,
And not to upset the apple cart. I mean, we thought
Yeah.
it better to just leave it the way it was and match it. But
Mhm.
we don't have a problem at all with changing it to a more period design. My client's very on board with that. If the board is, that's one of the things they want us to see.
So the railings are to be not aluminum, but any other material but aluminum, vinyl. What are we thinking?
Well,
I don't know.
no, I think, again, if they are starting fresh, anew with that front section of the house, I'm just saying it's an opportunity. The architect has said they're trying to bring it back to look like it did. That would be an opportunity to introduce some architectural detail. that would be a recommendation that I would have, if they can do that. And then also take the focal piece in the center and do something that also allows them the opportunity to bring in architectural detail. That to me would enhance the design and truly make it look more like a residence. That would be my,
We have no problem.
all right, and I don't have any problem with that, so I mean, does anybody else agree with my recommendation?
Yes.
Well, I was just gonna suggest that maybe the architect could walk around the historic district to maybe get ideas from other homes that are similar in style.
Can I make a point here? It looks very much like a Sears house to me. Sears company had the kits. And in fact, there is one with that same kind of roof, which I'll send to you. But it just has a classic sense, especially when there were several in the street. Oftentimes there's Sears and Roebuck houses that you ordered the kit. So I'm really pretty sure that was originally a Sears house, and they do have that style of.
Okay, so,
The roof design in the front is fine, is what Karen's saying.
Yeah, I have few.
I just want to make sure that we're. very-
Yeah, the eyebrow roof is fine,
So don't trouble the arch?
No.
Okay.
no? And then,
And the material of the balusters for the railing.
and you're reusing the balusters that are there, or you're introducing new balusters, the porch support?
Right now, the railing and the balusters, that's what's there. We will, as another commissioner just suggested, go through the historic district and change the detail of the railing. We don't have an issue with that.
Okay,
All right, unfortunately, we have to adhere to current code, which is
Right.
maximum 4-inch.
Right.
Not all baluster, but widths, but
Mhm.
other than that, we can modify them.
Can I suggest maybe just as far as the railing, a preference for whichever material the commission think are materials, but one where the balusters terminate at a bottom rail, just looking at the guidelines, that seems to be a more historic look. I think that what's there now, it pokes below a
The
rail,
porch-
it
the
makes
porch-
it a lot more modern.
the poach,
So you're saying the balusters that terminate not at the deck, but at a bottom?
yes, yes.
That's fine.
Okay, and then, so will you request also, the commission, that, before the development permit is issued, they provide revised drawings to the commission, just for review, to see if this is what you had in mind? Or do you want them to come back again? Or can they be approved if they send the revised
Is
drawings?
the only change the railings?
And I wondered if they could have some kind of feature other than that circle.
Oh, okay.
Just trying to remember the board, we really not want to delay the project.
No, I don't think they have to come back to another meeting.
No, but just the revised drawings, just I'll send it out to.
Yeah, right, that's fine.
So the window, the ventilation windows, you want something else done with it?
It just,
Well, what is that exactly? Is that simply like, it's not a real window? It's not a real vent?
The vent itself?
Yes.
It's not, no, wouldn't be real because
Okay,
there's surface behind it. It's not.
all right, so it's gonna look,
This is historical, and then, I can definitely pick something that has more of a period detail.
yes,
That's fine, that's actually very simple to do. But we would like to keep the shape and the style and the proportion that we have now.
Yeah.
would you be
I'm gonna
able,
show you a sample of what.
yeah, that's fine.
I think I know the answer to this question, but I'll ask. Would you be able to actually put a round window there?
No, because that's the dividing.
I figured there was a wall.
Between the two apartments. That's why we didn't do it.
Okay,
Was Shauna clear?
Give it the illusion of.
Yep, I just wanted the conditions to be more clearer.
Okay, so you don't have to come back here.
Thank you.
And good luck, ladies, good luck.
Wait, we didn't
What?
vote
Oh, sorry.
We need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Okay. Any second?
One second.
Okay,
Luau Marini,
approve.
Marjorie Cavalier,
Yes?
William Collins,
Aye.
Paul Cagno,
Yes.
Karen Schmelzkoff,
Yes.
and Betsy Valera.
Approved.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Here's your picture. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
What tailor shop it is? What,
The one right on Monmouth, 29 Monmouth Street.
what's it called?
It's Ben Surgeon, the tailor shop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You did my dress for my daughter's wedding.
Oh, I see a few familiar faces.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
all right.
Thank you. Next matter of old business is, the Red Bank Register building. Date on that.
Yes, a few months ago, it was brought to our attention by several commissioners. The changes to the Red Bank Register building, which I believe is 40 Broad Street. Since that time, I've reached out to code enforcement, and they submitted to them a violation notice. Since they failed to submit an application to this board for the exterior facade work, they have now received a summons for court, and they will be, their court date is scheduled for September 4th. So we will hear from the code enforcement, I will hear from the code enforcement officer, and I'll report back to you on what the decision was.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Right, and shall we move back to the design guideline committee and presentation?
Okay, so design guidelines, you should have all received a draft. And Stephen is here today to answer any questions that the commissioners have. Let me say that working with him so far, we are very pleased with the product that was sent to you for comment.
And would you like me to promote you to panelists so you could share the screen or the present, or you want me to do it?
That would be easiest.
Okay. Just let me know if like you have the option to share screen. Awesome.
Christina, did you want to come up here so you could see the screen
I'll
up there?
to us. Oh, I'm on. I'm sorry. Okay.
No, I know that you.
Stephen, I think it's just. Sit. Yeah,
Want me to
this
sit
one's-
here?
Yeah,
Oh,
just so that this mic. Putting them, not putting them.
I know, but just, just so you don't hurt your neck is what I'm concerned about.
You get me. Nice. One day. One day. No, not that, but the Zoom mic, yeah, that's what, able to do my minutes off of. Yes.
And Betsy,
And Paul, can you hear Stephen?
Betsy is still
And
there.
Betsy?
Oh, yeah, I'm still here.
I'm here. I see the design guidelines on the screen, but I haven't heard Stephen speak yet.
You have it? Can you hear him now?
No,
You could pop in the little
one of these. I think these guys were.
So it's not plugged in.
No,
Oh, it's not plugged in?
I think mine turned on when I,
No, it's not.
oh, not the
This one
Zoom
is.
one.
It's, oh.
Is this better if I just sit here, maybe?
Now I can hear you, Stephen.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
It's a lot, I know.
Maybe we should pass
This is,
a bond to get.
no, this was in the budget. Make sure of that.
Mhm.
Make sure of that.
How old is this sound system?
I don't know, let's move on because it's,
70.
yeah.
It's a lot more comfortable too. Okay, good evening, everyone. Stephen Smolin, Architectural Heritage Consultants. I'm going to give the commission an overview of the project, bring everyone up to speed on what I've been working on with the subcommittee over the past couple.
Turn on your mic too, just for those, yeah, there we go.
Oh, now it's on?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So the focus of this presentation tonight is
No.
one of the two components of the project, which is the design guidelines. I will be back in a couple months to talk about architectural surveys. The design guidelines have been broken into 3 different phases. It started back in May with research and analysis. We established a committee. I did documentation. I walked around the 2 historic districts, looked at some of the other remote historic sites. I think I've taken close to 800 or 900 pictures of Red Bank so far during the course of this project, and you see about 150 of them in the draft. The second phase of the project was the development of the draft of the guidelines themselves, starting with a table of contents, graphic layout, and also the different policies or the guidelines themselves. Here we are at an HPC meeting. And the next phase, which I'll be working on over the next, let's say, a month or 2, will be the actual implementation of the design guidelines, which will include formal adoption and also a dedicated public outreach event to teach people how to use these design guidelines. So back in May, we established a committee which was composed of Marjorie, Karen, Anthony, Maren from the River Center, and of course, Shauna. The committee has acted as a steering group, especially with the River Center involved. They're meant to represent the key stakeholders that will be following these design guidelines in the coming years. They're meant to, the committee has discussed a bunch of different issues. Design guidelines are complicated. There's a lot of detail that goes into them and a lot of little decisions along the way. And I think we've done a good job of building consensus in the 4 meetings that we've had since May. To develop the policies that you see in the design guidelines, which are at the end of each of the sections, and we'll talk about that in a moment, we started with a survey back in May. This is just an excerpt from that survey, which delved into a bunch of different policy options to understand from this committee where the Red Bank HPC stands on a whole host of issues and where you're kind of looking to go with future policy. So this survey, informed by the 5 committee members, really underpinned all of the policy that you see throughout the design guidelines. An important component of design guidelines, or even just serving on a historic preservation commission, is the distinction between contributing buildings in your district versus non-contributing buildings. And I think it's fairest and most effective long-term to write design guidelines primarily for the contributing buildings, the really historic stuff that everybody thinks about when they think of historic Red Bank and what it once was, the stuff that's still here. There's a formal definition for that, obviously, that's kind of the succinct one. And there's design guidelines that are specific and on the stricter end in order to preserve those historic buildings and that historic fabric that you still have. However, within any historic district, there's going to be a couple intrusions or non-contributing buildings, and they're part of the district. They likely were built after the district's end of the period of significance for the district. So let's think like they were built since 1970. They were built in the 80s, the 90s, and they have a part to play, but they shouldn't necessarily be following the same design guidelines you would apply to something that was built in 1860. So I put a couple examples of obviously non-contributing buildings spread throughout the Washington and Broad Street historic districts here. And this is actually defined in your ordinance, what a non-contributing building is, and that's the definition I included below. And what it means to be reviewing a non-contributing building is really just preventing an eyesore in the historic district from exacerbating or being created. It's about compatibility, and that's why all the design guidelines for non-contributing buildings emphasize compatibility. The audience for the design guidelines is important to just remember as we go into this first draft. There's kind of three different groups. There's, like we just saw, the applicant and public that have one set of questions and needs from the design guidelines. There's their architects or other design professionals that maybe are a little bit more technically minded. And lastly, there's yourselves, the commission and staff, who are meant to administer the design guidelines and decisions in a objective manner in coming years. So before we get to the draft, I just want to key everyone in on kind of the next steps, just to measure everyone's commentary and understand what comes next. In September, so next month, I'm planning on having a final draft done, and I will be presenting that to you all again. You'll get that ahead of time to look at. And then in October, that'll move forward to the planning board and then up the chain to the mayor and council for adoption. And the kind of exact sequence is going to get worked out, but that's roughly how things are looking. And then in November is when we are looking to do a public outreach event, which Marjorie has helped with already scheduling at the library. And we'll be publicizing that, of course, to make sure we get a lot of people there.
So the library is gonna put this on their website. And I don't know if you could see it there. Basically establishes the time period in the meeting room. And it mentions, it just says, join us for this November meeting, Q&A and design guidelines for property owners.
And we'll do direct outreach to the different real estate brokerages in town, architects, make sure we get as many of them, if not there in person, certainly watching either live on Zoom, which I'll set up, or the recording. Any questions before we proceed with the draft itself on just that introduction? Okay. So the design guidelines draft you all received is 90-something pages in length. I have excerpts of it within this presentation. Feel free to stop me at any time with questions or comments. That's what I'm here to get, so that we can make the final as good as possible. If I didn't include a page that you want to talk about, I can certainly pull that up in the background. But just to dive into it, the cover, I'm still working on the pictures. I want to make sure everything's in daylight. So a few of these may change for the final, but then you'll see on page 3 is the table of contents. That's how the whole book is organized. There's an introduction, historic context, which is quite detailed, and then the design guidelines themselves that run for about 50 pages. Right after that is the additions and new construction section. And then lastly is the appendice. And I think in the version that's posted online of the guidelines already, this entire table of contents is hyperlinked. So you can actually just click on those topics and you'll go right to those pages. So you don't need to scroll through everything.
So Stephen, I just want to mention for the benefit of the other commissioners. One of the conversations that we had was that if an example is included in this and it's a private residence, that the number of the house would not be mentioned.
Yeah, that's fine. That's totally fine. Towns handle differently. Some want every single address, some want no addresses, and I think doing
Right, you know, in the historic part, in the narrative in the beginning, where you're highlighting where a building stood once or has changed, that's fine. But when you kind of point to examples throughout the book, yeah, just not the private residence address.
Sure. So continuing on to pages 7 and 8. This is, I think, a really good resource that probably goes beyond the design guidelines, which is finally having a good isolated map of your historic districts in one place. There's a more detailed one in the appendice, and the list of historic landmarks is in progress, and I'm still verifying that with the city and your council. The review process has gone through a few rounds with Michelle. She's been very helpful in untangling the way that Red Bank interprets and has set up your HPC. So this may evolve slightly as well. It's on this page 8. And you'll see what minor applications are, so people understand as your ordinance is written that you comply with the design guidelines and you can get your project approved pretty quickly, which is good. And then in the bottom right, there's a hyperlink to your ordinance itself. Moving on to pages 10 and 11 here. The preservation philosophy is just meant to kind of be a quick crash course for people as to why history is important to Red Bank's current success as a town, how the HPC approaches materials, how the HPC acknowledges that many buildings in town have been altered over time, and some alterations are more significant and successful than others, and the importance of authenticity. Page 11 is an important one that you should really be looking at, I think, during every meeting, which are the Secretary of the Interior standards, specifically for rehabilitation. There are 10 standards for preservation, restoration, and reconstruction. But what you're dealing with most of the time, like even the application you just saw 15 minutes ago, is a rehabilitation project. I'm not going to spend too much time on the historic context section because that's gotten a lot of attention from the committee. Anything is factually incorrect, missing, overstated in this section, by all means, let me know. But the history runs from pages 13 to page, looks like 19, and that's meant to be more of an architectural history of Red Bank. And then the architectural styles, not meant to be every single style in the historic district, but stuff that has a couple examples, is on pages 20 through 23. And the importance of that section is if you're dealing with, just go back to tonight, a Queen Anne style building, you can go to page 22 and there's a description of Queen Anne there. And right below there are the character defining features of Queen Anne, from just in general, roof, cladding, windows, porch, doors. Those are important things to make sure the application is not removing if they're existing. That's like fundamental thing. So that's why this section is I think is helpful. And there's examples, 1 to 2 examples of each style adjacent to it, and I'll go through and edit the addresses like Marjorie just said. Moving on to the design guidelines section, there's an introductory page, like a primer on 25, and I've enlarged that on the screen here. There's a how-to, which is kind of like a key, a legend that sets out when you see a box with a black border, that's guidelines for a contributing building. If it's a gray border, that's a non-contributing. And when you're reading stuff within the red box, that's the do not do's in the historic district. Along the right third of the pages, there are occasionally excerpts from the Secretary of the Interior standards. You'll see the National Park Service plaque for that. Priorities of the HPC, like really important stuff you want people to come to meetings understanding, so you're not repeating it every month. Those are denoted by an ice boat icon, like your town logo has. And then lastly, if you see the ... those are going to be hyperlinks to hundreds and hundreds of pages of very detailed guidance that the National Park Service has put out over the last 40 or 50 years. There is on this page, this is page 25, a discussion related to like substitute and composite and imitative materials, which is always a hot topic and even came up during that application just now. And I've included the checklist, the new checklist from about 2 years ago for when substitute materials may be considered. And this is, by the way, for use in a contributing building. You can be a little bit more, you can actually be a lot more lax about substituting composite materials in a non-contributing building. And here are just some examples of what those are. So the middle picture here is real slate, genuine stone slate versus plastic slate, and that's actually considered by the Secretary of the Interior not to be a very successful example. You lost a lot of detail there. You don't have the texture of the slate. They put this strange corner cap, and it changed a lot about that tower. And by composite materials, I'm talking about things you hear like hardy board, AZAC, Trex, even fiberglass, I would put in the composite category, just fake, imitative, not necessarily always bad, but not wood, stone, brick. And there's 7 different criteria when those can be considered, and that's.
So I have, can I interrupt for a
Sure.
second? Because I'm just trying to practically see where this is going, because application after application, the board historically has allowed AZAC wrap, right? It looks like wood. That's the stuff that looks like wood, right? And also the hardy board is strewn about the historic district currently. So that's going to change. Is that the plan, that we're not going to allow homeowners who have wood houses to use the materials that last forever and look like wood?
If you're dealing with a house that's presently clad in vinyl, anything is going to be better than that siding wise. So that's certainly a place that hardy is going to be appropriate. I think the guidelines speak to a situation where you have a homeowner that has like wood siding or a wood porch, and they're looking to do something plastic, and that's not appropriate. And there are a lot of unfortunate examples in Red Bank of that happening over time. And I think a core mission of the HPC should be to really mitigate that in the coming years. So I think that's.
Yeah, but I think the problem that we hear is the expense of it all. You know, the expense to replace wood siding on a house that's only going to last, not quite as long as the materials that a lot of the residents in Red Bank are currently using. And we had a member in this commission who was before us, who just did his house, a wood house, and everyone approved it wholeheartedly, right? And put on a material that looks exactly like wood. So, I mean, I'm just trying to look down the road of what's going to be feasible to this community. Certainly not vinyl wrap on the house, but I think some of these other products that look like wood, not sure that stopping residents is going to be the best way for the commission to go, especially if we haven't been doing that specifically for our own members. I mean, it's just, does anybody else see the irony? I guess not.
So I also share some of that opinion about the actual feasibility and the the burden that no alternate replacements would put on these residents. I loved reading the history portion and noting especially, I mean, I think we're primarily discussing the residential with this consideration, but I loved reading, like, this was working in middle class housing. I don't think you can say that anymore about the area, but this pushes it even further in that direction in terms of the affordability of those homes. And many times, I think Paul, the commission would agree, we have people who purchase because they love the look, they really respect these homes. And they want to keep it looking the same way. They want it to continue to add to the charm, but are looking at the newest and best, most robust materials that keep that appearance. So I would just ask that, the commission consider that, and especially hoping that this is a document for the long term and these materials continue, I think, to improve over time. I would hate for us to say that no replacement is feasible, now or in the future, and that cut off some opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, the commission's here to exercise a degree of like reasonableness on every application. It's my hope, and I think achievable, that you guys will be able to follow these guidelines 9 out of 10 times. Let's say the vast majority. The Secretary of the Interior revised their guidance on substitute materials just 2 years ago, and this checklist reflects that. And what they effectively did was add the 4 more criteria at the bottom of that list. And this, I think, provided a lot of flexibility to people, which is why I'm pretty eager to put this in the guidelines. And the 5th one down that you'll see is replacement of a secondary feature.
So what page are you referring to?
I'm still on page 25 at the checklist in the bottom right. And replacement of a secondary feature is a place that you can appropriately consider the use of a composite or substitute material. So I think what that's doing is really focusing the HPC's attention on the primary features of the building, which I can better define in the final draft. It's sort of done in the architectural styles already. But I think that gives homeowners a pretty good degree of latitude, that you're not looking for like wood on every square inch of the exterior of their house like a Cape May might be. Like I'm acknowledging that. But for a porch right on Washington Street that, maybe it's from the late 1800s and you're doing a railing alteration, it should really be wood. There's there's no way to twist the Secretary of the Interior guidelines to say it should be anything other than that. And your ordinance references this, and I think it'll be really helpful if the HPC administers it in a consistent way going forward.
Yeah, I would say, I think we have been doing what consistently is the porch railings, the moldings around the windows, the moldings, the soffits, we've been saying wood. It's really what I've seen the commission do is allowing the siding. I don't know if you call it hardy back or not. I don't know if that was the term. I mean, what Doug put on his house a couple months ago looks like wood. I don't know what that is, but he left wood. Like I said, around the moldings, his porch is still wood. His soffits are wood. The other material, historic features around the porch are all. So I guess that's where I'm going with that. I think that a lot of residents, when they have enough money to come and repair the wood is deteriorated beyond repair, they're asking to come in and not wrap it with vinyl, but wrap it with stuff that's going to last for 50 years, and I think we're going to run into a little pushback if we say, you know what, you can't do that. You got to put the stuff on that you're ripping off that didn't last the first time. That's just my opinion on it. And I think the residents who came in from Irving, was a good example of what I think we're going to face.
Well, if the material
But
didn't
have
last,
an exception, to have an exception, to give us a little bit of leeway to make an exception for a homeowner, I think is very important.
yeah, of course. And there is an important line I should have flagged. That I think it was actually Michelle that had me add on the bottom of page 6, which relates to, it's the last line on page 6 under purpose and intent and design guidelines, that each application is considered on a case-by-case basis, and the HPC retains the discretion to weigh the guidelines accordingly. It would be very unfortunate if you guys did not follow the design guidelines every single night. But that does give you a degree of latitude, of course, in making decisions. And if the material was not sufficient, it was a poor original material, which wood siding is not, and there's plenty of documented examples of that lasting effectively forever. That's the third criteria in the checklist for when substitute materials can be considered. If I'll tell you, like wood siding, a lot easier to repair over time than hardy plank. I mean, hardy plank, you're cutting into cement, there's stuff, particles going everywhere. It's kind of a whole situation to repair hardy plank. And I think if wood, well-maintained, painted regularly, is going to last longer than hardy plank, and it's going to provide the profile, and it's going to maintain the historic integrity of the house, which is what the guidelines are really after at the end of the day.
And just for clarification, this checklist of, 8 points on page 25 in terms of substitute materials. Some of them obviously are about secondary features, but this would apply to cladding, to roofs, if the substitute or intent to substitute meets these criteria.
Yes. Yes, and this is distilled to the bare minimum in terms of length. I can, if I didn't already, include a link to the Secretary of the Interior's preservation brief. I'll add that, and that goes into a lot more detail on all those different elements as to what's appropriate and why. Pictures.
Even this will mostly this checklist would mostly refer to contributing buildings, correct? And not non-contributing wouldn't have such a stringent checklist.
No, and I need to make that more clear that this is for, we're talking about
the building we talked about earlier when the architect was here, that's not contributing. I mean, it's wrapped in, I believe, is that the way we go? Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it's vinyl siding and,
Final railing.
I mean, if it could be restored, perhaps, to be a contributing building. But clearly, it's got, asbestos, not asbestos, asphalt shingles, good asphalt shingles, but I mean, the metal rails, when he talked about, replacing them with something, I have to laugh because most people who look to replace that are going to put plastic. And there's very good plastic railings out there, but I mean, it's not something we would recommend. It's challenging. And, we've run into that with several applicants who purchased houses or are already in homes that had beautiful slate roofs on them, but the roofs are now 100 years old. They're leaking profusely. And they don't have 6 figures lying around to put into a new roof. And it's a tough discussion.
I'm just curious, Stephen, in dealing with other communities, are there grants available or do local governments give tax incentives to people in historic districts so that they can use materials that have integrity?
Yeah, genuine historic materials, or more broadly, there's grants available for projects that comply with the Secretary of the Interior standards, especially for commercial revenue generating properties. SHPO administers a grant, I think it still exists, to tax abatement. There are municipalities that have private organizations that provide grant funding. There's cities like we've heard from the River Center, Jersey City has a program where they contribute a lot to new storefronts or restorations of historic storefronts. There's towns, this is probably easier to do, that actually provide an abatement on the incremental value you add to the house after doing a project that the HPC approved. I don't think any of those exist in Red Bank, but they could certainly come into effect in the future.
Okay,
Gonna move
thank you.
on. I'm gonna move on to the roof section. So just to flag a few things here. You'll see that on the first page of the section, this applies to both your Broad Street Historic District and the Washington Street Historic District. This is an excerpt right out of the Secretary of the Interior narrative related to roofs. There's a description here about roofs generally, historically in Red Bank, within the two districts. And then on page 27, again, a lot of design guidelines have to do with materials. There's a chart related to replacement of primary roofs on contributing buildings. And this is essentially encouraging people that still have slate, wood, or metal roofs to just replace them in kind. It's not appropriate to take a slate roof, replace it with an asphalt shingle roof. It's unlikely that an entire slate roof would ever have to be replaced. It's typically just the underlayment. You can take the shingles off to deal with that. And then the fourth row here is probably the vast majority of buildings in Red Bank, which are asphalt or non-historic roofing material. And that's providing flexibility for people to, of course, replace that in kind. You can always take your asphalt shingles off and put new asphalt shingles on. However, if you'd like to look at a wood or a slate roof, which some people may, that should just be something based on historical documentation, that we shouldn't be putting wood or cedar shake roofs on houses that once had standing seam metal roofs, for example. Then at the end of the roof section, after you get through cornices, dormers, ornamental features, gutters, chimneys, you come to the design guidelines. They're numbered. There's 9 for contributing buildings, 2 for non-contributing buildings, and then 2 inappropriate treatments listed with also some pictures adjacent to all this. The guidelines generally follow a similar form. First one is going to be big picture, preserving that architectural feature. The second guideline deals with what in-kind repair would mean, in this case for a roof, when replacement is necessary, because the HPC should always be looking to, if historic fabric or material exists, to really preserve and maintain that. Guideline 4 here is about appropriate primary roof material. So that was the chart we just looked at. Guideline 5 is secondary roof materials, which is typically just going to be asphalt shingle. Then there's guidelines on chimneys, gutters, equipment, and skylights. And then the non-contributing ones, again, are essentially just trying to avoid creating an eyesore when it comes to roofs. Any questions on roofs before I move on? Exterior cladding, so we're moving down the building. Also applies to both historic districts. There's guidance on masonry, wood siding, shingles in here. There's a chart again about materials, and this is a common one. If you have existing vinyl, what's appropriate? That's the type of thing where anything is better than vinyl for so many reasons. That's a great place to look at hardy plank. That's consistent with the Secretary of the Interior standards for sure. We left that yellow because we wanted to hear the commission's thoughts on permitting the in-kind replacement of vinyl for vinyl. There are, I think, a minority of towns in New Jersey that I've dealt with that would allow that type of thing to happen. A lot of HPCs are they've taken this stance that we're getting rid of vinyl. It's not historic. It's not why people designated this district historic. And it just really should not be added in the future. Thoughts on that?
I hate vinyl. I agree. I mean, we're setting standards here. I think in the standards, we should make clear that vinyl is not appropriate. And obviously, case by case, if there are compelling reasons to make an exception, we could do that. But I don't think we I don't think we start with a low bar here.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that, or are we good there? Okay. The guidelines for exterior cladding, I'm just going to see if there's any I should highlight for you all. EFIS, by the way, refers to, it's an abbreviation for exterior insulation and finish system. It became popular in like the late 70s and 80s. It's what like strip wall and tar would be made out of. It's like a cementitious material. It tends to leak. It's gotten a little better recently, but it's really not a historic material. There's not a tremendous amount of it in Red Bank. There's certainly more vinyl. It's not a historic material. It's like a cheap stucco. It's not a good replacement for real stucco. Okay, moving on to windows. So we're on page 38 of the guidelines. This applies to both districts again. There are diagrams related to just how to talk about windows, because there's like dozens and dozens of terms you can use and are important for everybody to understand. Different types, 1/1, 3/1, Palladian windows are diagrammed on page 39. There's a diagram on the bottom right of page 39 about simulated versus true divided lights. Most of the time, I think you're going to see people proposing simulate divided lights, not true divided lights. At a minimum, they should be putting something on the exterior of the glass. It should not be buttons between the glass or buttons on the inside of the glass. You want to get some profile and depth on the exterior of the glass. So that's why that diagram is important. On page 40 is another chart about existing primary window material on a contributing building versus what's appropriate. I think the same conversation and thought probably applies here related to vinyl windows and replacement with either vinyl or essentially financially equivalent composite like a fiberglass or Fibrex. There's so many different names for it. I think it would be great to not add any more vinyl windows to contributing buildings in Red Bank. So that's what this chart will say. At the end, by the way, there's in the appendix, so you don't have to go there now, but all the way back on page 87 and 88, there's an entire matrix of a dozen window manufacturers and what I tried to kind of translate the lingo between all these manufacturers. So if you see a certain type of window and this brand line, you'll understand that it's a wood window versus a vinyl window. There are way more vinyl window options than wood window options, and people get a little confused about wood clad windows versus wood windows. So that's what that chart at the end of the guidelines, I hope, untangles and can be a reference for everybody, because the HPC is concerned about, of course, what the window looks like from the outside. They don't care that you're seeing wood within your space, and there are very few people doing wood windows at this point on the exterior of the building. They're harder to maintain, and the guidelines are not pushing people to always be using wood windows. They're providing for the use of composites in many instances. So that's a wood window that has some type of cladding over to protect it over time.
But window related question. as you know, there's been a trend in recent years, especially new construction, for black windows or bronze windows. And we have had people with historic homes or historic structures come in and ask about, to the extent they need to replace the existing windows in historic homes, if they can change the color to bronze or black. As long as they preserve, as long as the new window in all other respects is architecturally, texture-wise, and the number of lights, et cetera, consistent with what the original window was. What should our view be on that?
I have to think about that one, and go back through pictures of the district, because there are quite a few examples of darker windows. It's a color thing. I have to think about that one. I'll have that sorted out by the September draft.
It's come up several times. I mean, there's a house we just approved the work on, and then after the fact, when they were originally going to replace the window, repair the windows, and then they started getting into it and realized they were not repairable cost effectively. So they asked if, they said, okay, these are the colors we intend to use. And in that conversation, they mentioned bronze.
I have to think about that. I mean, my initial thought is that it's not appropriate. But we have to come up with a little more substance, I think, to describe why that's not appropriate and why it's hard to see the mutton pattern, because it blends in with the glass and everything else that happens.
Yeah, okay.
Let me think about that. I'll put that in. Any other questions on windows, by the way, before I move on, or comments?
I just want to say that on the window guidelines on page 42, I agree with the inappropriate examples. And we may get pushback because they don't want to put in central air and take the windows hanging on the front of the buildings. But I think that we still should say it's inappropriate. I don't know if anybody cares, but the fact that you could have that hanging on the front of it.
I think it gets back to, we're saying standards here.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
obviously there can be, and everything will be case by case, but we set an appropriate bar.
Right.
That's what this is.
No, I'm just saying that
So,
I
think
agree,
that-
I agree with the examples of inappropriate on
Yes.
the guidelines page for windows.
yes.
So porch and entrances is only for the Washington Street Historic District. The diagram of the different components of a porch, that those 7 things are what you should be seeing with every porch application. Railings and lattice work, which I think was even referenced on the application tonight. There's a diagram on page 45 about that. The importance of no vinyl lattice, always framing the lattice, putting skirting board between the lattice and the rail, having a gap between the rail, not running the rail down to the deck boards. That's on the diagram. And there's also a diagram on 46, actually put in a better place, so it's not next to the lighting section, about enclosing a front porch. Unfortunately, there's a couple examples of that on Washington Street. And there's even one example which we included, I think, outside of the district, of someone unenclosing a porch, which is on the top of page 47 and on the presentation here. That's a great thing to continue to encourage. And the guidelines for porches, we will see on page 47, and I think they're pretty comprehensive. Next, component of porches, doors, again, only for the Washington Street Historic District. There are a lot of very well preserved, particularly double doors throughout the Washington Street Historic District. So that's something that I think has been done really well here in Red Bank, and that should continue. Garage doors is tucked into this section as well. That's on page 50. And then on 51 is where you'll see the guidelines for doors. It's essentially about if you have a wood door, especially if it's covered by a porch, it's probably in good enough shape to be repaired, and should be. No one should be going to Lowe's or Home Depot to buy a vinyl or fiberglass door with that funny gold patterning on the glass, like the two bad examples on 51 are. That really degrades the historic district and streetscape. Okay. Page 52 is storefronts. This is an important one for Broad Street. And I'm going to, at this time, actually pass around these brochures I made to summarize this section, which I'm going to the River Center next week.
Thank you.
I got one.
You got one? Yeah, or Karen left.
Oh, she left. You could take, you could. Unless you want.
Everything in the brochures is already in the design. It's just simplified in the brochure. So the storefront section has a diagram of like a prototypical historic storefront and the 7 components of that. And then on page 55 is sort of flow chart to understand what type of treatment you should be doing for a storefront. This is something that just from like firsthand experience, serving on the Hoboken HPC, advising the Montclair HPC, I see a lot of people get tripped up on this, commissioners and applicants, even architects, as to what they're doing and what treatment they're supposed to be following. So this flow chart on 55 is meant to demystify that. And the brochure is all built around this. So you'll see if you open the brochure, there are 3 different columns. Those are restoration, rehabilitation, and new construction. So restoration and rehabilitation, people use, fortunately, interchangeably. They mean different things. And those are going back to the Secretary of the Interior standards. There's separate and distinct kind of philosophies for both of those. A restoration project this is for a contributing building. There's historic documentation available, and the objective of a restoration project is to return that storefront to as it once existed in an earlier time within the historic district's period of significance. So let's just say 1920. We're here in 2025. You're returning that storefront to how it existed in 1920. In order to do that, there should be an intact historic storefront, photos of the historic storefront, so you're doing a faithful restoration. This is not an appropriate treatment for newer buildings, stuff that was built after the historic district's period of significance, and not where you're looking to change the historic look. So the brochure shows a before restoration example of some semblance of architectural fabric remaining, and then the lower picture is what a successful restoration would look like after. The rehabilitation treatment, which is effectively an alternative to a restoration and the type of thing you would do if there's not good historical documentation of what once existed. Same thing, it's for older buildings. There's some historic fabric maybe remaining. Maybe you can reference an adjacent prototype for use in this rehabilitation, but you're making some alterations and you're updating the storefront for a modern use. I think the vast majority of applications you're going to see are rehabilitation. The application you saw 30 minutes ago was a rehabilitation project, and you're meant to be retaining and repairing character defining features. It's all about compatibility in terms of what's being added to the storefront, so you're evaluating it for that. The questions, I think it was Paul that was asking about, is this curving eyebrow thing actually compatible with the style of this very altered Queen Anne building? I think are like right in line with what you should be doing for a rehabilitation project. Then the last treatment that you'll see storefronts is just new construction. They're building something new. This is a building from 1970, 1980. It has a storefront. You're altering it. It's a brand new building. You're going for compatibility again. This is where appropriate if there's like absolutely no historic fabric because it's a new building, and you're just making sure essentially that the storefront has the majority of the components that a historic storefront would. Not like, we're not talking about pseudo or fake history here, but there should be datums for some type of solid bulkhead, a display window, a transom. Like there should be a semblance of that somewhere in the design, so it's contemporary yet contextual to the rest of the historic district.
I think Paul has a comment.
Oh, sure, Paul.
Stephen, so when that gentleman was, when he put the eyebrow thing on that lower roof, if that was a contributing piece of property in town, we would shy away from allowing him to do that, but since it's not contributing, we're okay with that? Or is it's more how do we treat that? Because he was changing the lower porch roof, right, as compared to the overall picture of the house. So how do we address that?
So you're always looking at that type of project for its compatibility with the building and the immediate like other or historic buildings, the context.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'd have to do a little bit more research to actually determine if that was a contributing building or not. It certainly is very altered, but it does still have the form that it likely once had. And if it's the last of, or it was once a series of houses on Monmouth Street, that may very well be a contributing building. It just happens to be clad in vinyl and some cheap railings. I'm not sure, but you're looking at the addition in relation to the style of the house, what remains. Maybe it's multiple styles, but like, do Queen Anne buildings have eyebrow porches? The answer is typically no. I haven't seen one historically.
Right.
So that's what you're looking for. And it's similar for a storefront, like on Broad Street, like is this storefront that's being proposed tonight, like compatible? Does this like work with the rest of the district? Is it harmonious, or is it drawing a lot of attention to itself and maybe something more appropriate for like an enclosed mall?
Thank you.
I have a question about this handout. So I see on the bottom that it's like New Jersey Historic Trust because it's part of the money that they gave us to do this. So, and I'm guessing that when we have our next meeting of the subcommittee next Friday, you're gonna share this with Maren. So this would be something that would be in the River Center, like in a kiosk or something. So we're gonna pay for this to be given to the River Center and maybe a way for them to reprint it when they run out?
Yeah, I think it would ideally end up on the HPC's website, just the 2 pages that this compose this brochure. And anyone could fit it, and I would imagine the River Center would be pretty motivated.
Okay, so to get started with this whole process and introducing the guidelines, as part of your contract, would we get like 100 of these, or, I mean, how would that work? To get this out there?
some towns ask for these brochures and they build them in. I don't think I have that for Red Bank, and I really made this because I sensed the River Center was maybe not understanding the different like lanes a storefront could fall into, and I wanted to just
I mean,
abundantly clear.
I think this would be helpful for them. You know, I'd like the fact that it repeats the link.
Mhm.
But I just wonder how we get it into their hands to use. I mean, would that be,
We could send them a PDF and they'll print it themselves. They have,
okay, and then we'll share this with them.
Yeah.
A week from Friday.
Yeah, and I can give them like a holder for it. Kate May runs a program where the holder that the brochures all sit in,
Okay,
once they're depleted, literally say to email the HPC office there and they distribute the copies because they're like.
okay, but we're gonna do it different. We're gonna just,
Different.
yeah, we're gonna just give them the PDF and.
Yeah.
Okay,
So pages 56 to 58 here, which spreads on the screen are in detail, the different treatments per storefront. The majority of stuff you'll see again is the rehabilitation one, but there are cases where people are going to be restoring or dealing with a very intact historic storefront, and that's a different situation. And then there's other cases where it's not a historic building and people can do something a little different, not as different as the inappropriate examples I have there, but they have a little more leeway, and we're just looking for general references and compatibility in those proposals. Also, in this section and in the brochure is a section on signage. So it's first thing is identifying what type of sign we're proposing. There should be some type of dimension to the letters. It shouldn't just be a sheet of metal or more like plastic that you printed directly on, or vinyl wrapped or whatever. Like there should be some solidity to the sign in the historic district on any type of building. Heights are provided there. I'm still kind of in the process of cross-checking this to make sure we're not running afoul of your zoning or anything, because we don't want to create more confusion there. And then there's also light temperatures in a diagram that people should most of the time be trending toward the warmer end of color temperature versus like the super cool blue light that, you know, is not the most pleasant thing to see at night, especially in the historic district. Any questions on signs before I move on? By the way, I mean, that's a big chunk of Red Bank. Okay. Following section is all site and streetscape. A lot of these are more in the category of like recommendations versus guidelines, because you may not, strictly speaking, have purview over them. So this is stuff if a homeowner or business owner is curious, like appropriate walkway between sidewalk and their porch, like where to go for that type of stuff. Page 67 is section on accessibility about opening doors, adding lifts, ramps. There's a lot of storefronts in this town that have steps, so this is the section to look at for dealing with that sensitively. Mechanical and utility equipment includes solar technology, solar panels, but I guess given local ordinances and stuff, that's a category of just recommendations and not guidelines. Ideally, they should not be on the front gable of a house facing Washington Street, but that's only a recommendation. Page 71 is the demolition. These are just the 7 considerations from your ordinance pasted right there. And then we are on to the additions section, which starts on page 73. This is for both of the historic districts. You're applying Secretary of the Interior Standards number 9, especially, and also 10. And the additions section includes a few pages just priming people for site placement, the basics, height, massing, proportion, scale, architectural features. And then on page 76, you get into actual guidelines for three different broad categories of additions you may see. Side and rear yard additions, so lateral expansions of a house. Rooftop additions, that's on page 77, and carriage house and accessory structures is on page 78. There's guidelines for each of those, if it's an addition to a contributing building or a non-contributing building, and then also diagram of a very appropriate example of that type of addition and a very inappropriate and disruptive type of that addition that we would really like to not see in Red Bank. Any questions on additions? No. The last section here is new construction, so this is for both districts again. And this is divided up into the different criteria that you can use to approach a new construction project. I will renumber the guidelines here so they run continuously. So the guidelines for site placement start at 1, and then when you get to height and massing, that should pick up at 8. Not 1 again, so you can always cite what guideline you're looking at and people.
So you're talking about on 81, you would start with 8, 9, 10, 11.
Yes. You'll be able to say, I'm looking at new construction guideline 9, and there's only one example, because right now I have 3 different or 4 different number ones, which could get a little confusing.
Okay.
So site placement is a factor, height, mass, and proportion and scale, architectural features, and lastly, materials. The examples given in new construction are purposely only inappropriate examples. I think people should have some flexibility and design thought in new construction, so we didn't include appropriate because we don't want that to become like a copy and paste situation in the future where people should think about it and bring up support. Any questions on new construction? Couple examples in Red Bank in the districts. I tried to include the good and the middle ground for new construction there. Moving on to the appendice, that starts on page 84. There's an enlargement of the Broad Street Historic District and also the Washington Street Historic District. And if you see, I'm not sure if I'm going to keep this in the final, I'll talk to the committee about this, but if you see a lot number with a highlight on it, like a yellow circle around it somewhat faintly, that means that that building has already been surveyed, you know.
So not part of the second part of your,
No, I would not.
you would not do
I would
those.
definitely not be resurveying those. I think we'll talk about the next meeting, potentially surveying the balance of the contributing buildings within that historic district would probably make the most sense.
Yeah, so it's just, for example, we're just talking about on Monmouth Street, right? It looks like maybe it's the old town hall, right?
A diner,
Townhouse,
yep,
okay,
a diner next to it,
and the diner, right? Okay,
and then lot 15, which might have 2 structures on it.
could be the old Elf Lodge, I don't know.
But this is all for a later discussion.
Right, right, yes.
This is kind of just illustrative for, I was actually kind of surprised with how many surveys and paperwork has been done on Red Bank, how little there was in the 2 historic districts. I might have missed 1 or 2, so I'll double check this. Washington Street has a few more surveys, but you can still see there are groupings of houses that you wouldn't definitively know right now.
So where, was it hard to find these surveys?
No.
And they are where? I mean,
They're with these incredibly responsive people at the county that will literally get back to you in 5 minutes when you email them.
okay,
But we can take these, all their public information, and you can put them anywhere on your website. That's what a lot of towns do.
that's what, I mean, you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
That if somebody has one of these properties and they want to access that, this is how they do it.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I'm thinking about the November meeting, just, okay.
Yeah, and eventually, like any surveys I do, like today, will be incorporated into the state's GIS system, so they all end up on this giant repository that they keep.
The Lucy one?
The Lucy one, yep. And I think these surveys are on there that I have noted in yellow are already, you can find the Blue Lucy, but I wouldn't expect any homeowners to just know that that exists. Okay, the next two are window replacement. I'll verify if Pella has a replacement sash. I do think they should have something. It should not be blank. And then the glossary is a few pages, pictures of as many examples as I could include there. And then the last page is a bunch of hyperlinked resources, federal, state, county, local, and books for people that feel like reading even more once they've gotten to this part of the design guidelines. And there are a few good books there on paint colors for homeowners curious about appropriate Victorian paint. And that rounds out the design guidelines.
Pages for autographs.
So Marjorie, I think, has maybe a draft soft cover copy. If you just want to show everybody else that that's how
Yeah.
the final would be bound in a similar fashion to that. And that's what is printed and available directly from Amazon, 1 to 100 copies. That comes in like, that got delivered to Marjorie in like 36 hours.
Yeah. Just to know.
Any general comments or questions to the guidelines, stuff for me to work on towards September?
I just want to say that I've been very pleased with the process so far. And I look forward to using this as Christmas gifts. I believe you. Say that.
Stephen, I want to say, hell of a job,
80%.
Stephen.
Thank you.
Very thorough. I told you what my concerns were with respect to the replacement materials, and I actually think on a couple of those pages in here, the restoration or renovation, I think it's more of a restoration that was done on Wallace Street, a couple houses in on the right. The greenhouse, you've actually got pictures of it, even in the glossary, those windows on that light greenhouse at the bottom. I don't think that's wood that she put on that house. I think it's a replacement type of material, which is just an example of it looks exactly like wood. I think there is still wood on it, but I don't think, I'm not 100% sure, but Marjorie, maybe you would know it if you know Cindy. But it's just an example of
I
what,
do not know.
Yeah.
I do not know.
I don't
But
think
yeah,
that's
I agree
wood.
with you. I
Yeah.
agree with you.
I don't think that
Yeah,
is
it's really
wood.
good.
There is wood on there around the windows and the trim and things like that, but I don't think the body of that house is wood. I think it's a replacement material. And it looks lovely. But anyway, thorough job, excellent. I mean, I'm really impressed with it. I can tell it's just really, really good. But that's my only concern was what we discussed.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you as well, Stephen, and to the whole committee that worked on this. It's really excellent, above and beyond what I was expecting. It's really great.
Yeah.
And anyone on Zoom that public wise that maybe has a comment or question?
There's no public.
Okay.
And Stephen, I echo all the comments made so far. Too. So frankly, what I see day in, day out, when I receive a draft 2 from somebody, it isn't almost a final product. This, the quality of it is, it's almost a final product. So it's very well done. Thank you.
And I have your 2 pages of comments too, and I'll work to incorporate those. Thank you for that. If anyone does have like really specific comments that you think of over the coming days, feel free to send those to Sean and she'll get them to me.
For that part of the agenda. So we just,
Question, is this online either in our agenda?
The
or
agenda.
The agenda for folks, the publicly? Okay.
Yep.
I think that's it. Have one more
All
item.
right, we have one more item on the
And if
agenda.
you're walking to the train station, I'll walk down that way with you. If you want company.
The item is new business, HPC professional development opportunity.
Okay, so Karen left, so I'm gonna just do this and, it's just a way if you want to. I don't think we're interested in getting college credits or graduate credits.
That's it.
Oh, maybe Betsy, yeah. So there is, an announcement in the Mid-Atlantic Regional Center for Humanities. Registration is now open. That includes a 10-week course with 2 college credits, Introduction to Historic Preservation. And basic training for historic preservation commissions. And that's 6 weeks, 1.2 credits. And the 5 pillars of preventive conservation, and that's 5 weeks with 1 credit. So Betsy, you could go online. They tend to be from 6 to 8:30, so they shouldn't interfere with your regular college. And I would hope that if there is a charge, that she could submit that voucher and we would pay for her to take the courses if you're interested. But it could be cheaper than your college credit. I don't know.
Would it be possible if you could send this to me in an email, please?
I will try and forward it. I got it.
Just text Karen and see.
Or,
I'll share the,
you could, yeah, text her to send it to Betsy. But that would be great. And then we'll include it in our report if she takes any of these courses. So that's all I have.
Okay, very good. Thank you. There being no public, I believe, we can dispense with the public comments on non-agenda items and have a motion for adjournment if someone would like to give one. Anyone move for adjournment?
I'll move.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
I
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
All right, maybe I'll see you.